This is the pattern tile I created in a previous demo, and I've made a few little adjustments to the bottom layer where I've changed the gradient fill and warped it a little bit to give it kind of an interesting shape as if it's in motion. I'll deselect that shape thumbnail in my layer palette now, and I've defined it as a pattern, but I'll repeat how to do that from the last demonstration video. I hold down the Shift key and select both layers, or if you have more than two layers you would select all of them with the Shift key held down, or go to the Select menu and choose all layers. And then I would go to the Edit menu, I would choose Define Pattern, I would give this a name, and click OK. And nothing will happen immediately, but when you go to fill something with that pattern, you'll be able to see this in the list of patterns that appear. Now I'm actually going to work in a template file that I previously downloaded from the internet and sized to an 8 by 8 inch canvas on which I can apply this pattern fill. And I have it open here as another document in Photoshop. So I click on the tab for that. I look at the image size. I'll go to the image menu, image size. You'll see that it's actually a canvas that is 7.5 by 7.5 inches, and the pixel resolution is 150, which is the same as my pattern tile. It's helpful to have a similar resolution than your pattern tile. So if your pattern tile is at 100 pixels per inch, you generally would like your template at the same resolution. And if it is not, you would come into this image size feature and change it here. Luckily this is the right resolution, so I'll just click cancel. But I do want to make this an 8 by 8 inch canvas, so when I print this on my inkjet printer on the letter size page, it will center nicely along the width. Let's click cancel and change the canvas size to 8 by 8 inches by going under the image menu and choosing canvas size this time. Here's where I can indicate where I can add more canvas area to this document. So I'll make the width and the height 8 inches, and I will anchor the existing artwork in the center of the new canvas, and the resulting extra canvas area will be white. I want that to be filled with a white background, so I'll click OK. My pattern tile offset document's color space is CMYK, if you remember, but this template file is actually in an index color space. I'll see that here in the tab, and I can change it to CMYK. If I click on the image menu, I can choose mode and change it from indexed to CMYK in one step. And I get a little warning, but I can just click OK to accept. It's something I can live with. And again, I will save the file to retain that change. Now I'm going to get ready to apply a new layer above this existing background layer where the template lives. Now I'm going to create a new pattern fill layer, and it will be a layer that will be defined by the outer shape of this template. So I will first make a selection of the template area, of the internal part of the template where I want the pattern fill to be applied. And I can do that by selecting the Magic Wand tool. The Magic Wand, as well as this Quick Selection tool, are two of several selection tools in the toolbox. The others are this rectangular and elliptical selection tools, all of these lasso tools, and each of these different selection tools works and behaves in slightly different ways. The Magic Wand specifically, the tool that I am choosing here, works on a tolerance setting, meaning wherever I click on the canvas, it will go out and look for similar pixels that have a similar value than the one I clicked on, within a 10 pixel value radius. By value I mean brightness value, either completely black or all the way up to white. And the range goes from 0, which is black or no tolerance, to 255, which is white or the most tolerance. So if I set it to 255 and I click somewhere on the canvas, it's going to select every pixel on this canvas, because every pixel on this canvas falls within the 255 pixel value tolerance. Now I'll deselect that selection by going to the Select menu and choosing Deselect. And now I'll change my tolerance down to something low. The lower the tolerance, the fewer pixels that become selected. The next thing I want to make sure is checked is this contiguous box, because this allows Photoshop to only select pixels similar to the one I clicked on that are also adjacent to the one I clicked on. So if I check the box off, and then I click again, Photoshop has selected every white pixel in the entire canvas, including those inside and outside the template. And that's not what I want. So again, I'm going to deselect. Now I'll turn the checkbox back on for contiguous. So with contiguous on, I can now click inside of this shape, and now I get all the white area only on the inside of this template. I'm actually selecting it, which means I'm isolating it. So if I were to get a paintbrush at this point, fill it with black, and start painting, it would only paint inside the selected area. That's what this selection does. It isolates pixels. Let me undo that last brush stroke. And now I'm going to create a new layer, a pattern fill layer, and I'm going to fill it with the pattern that I defined in the previous steps. To do that, I can click on this little circle, black and white circle icon at the bottom of my layer palette. I can scroll up to choose a pattern layer. Or, if that's hard to remember, you can always go to the Layer menu and choose New Fill Layer and select the Pattern option. You get a new Pattern Fill Layer. So we can just let this call itself Pattern Fill 1. I'll click OK, and you'll see my new Pattern Fill Layer shows up, and in fact the last pattern I defined or saved shows up as the fill. If I click on this pattern menu, you'll see that it's actually there, the last defined pattern in my list of patterns here, along with others that I've created in the past. But the one I just created is here. And before I click OK, I can actually scale this. So if I feel like that pattern's too big for my template, I can scale it down a little bit and see what it would look like with a little bit smaller sizes. I can also move this around in here. If I don't kind of like where it's mapping, I can move it around. So I'm going to set this at 65. I'm going to click OK, and now I have a new pattern fill layer that has masked out everything except the shape of my template because I started with that selection. So the last step I will do here is to change the fill, the blend mode rather, of this layer from normal, which is basically opaque, to multiply. And that actually allows the fold lines to show through a little bit better than they had before. So that once I print this out and I cut along these lines, I'll still be able to see these fold lines, these dashed lines that indicate where I would fold this paper craft once it's printed. Another last option would be to select the background layer and create a new solid fill layer by going under the Layer menu, choosing New Fill Layer, and in this case choosing Solid, or I could even choose Gradient if I wanted, but I'll choose Solid for now. And it gives it a name. I'll click OK to that, and I get a dialog box that lets me choose a color, and here are the hues, so I can scroll up and down in this hue slider, pick a light color, dark color. You'll notice that it's actually looking like it's dampening down the color of the pattern layer, which is perfectly okay. I'll click OK to this, and remember my pattern fill layer has a multiply mode on, which is kind of why you're getting this effect. We could choose a different effect. There's screen mode, there's lighten mode, color dodge, and again I have the pattern fill layer selected, and I'm changing these blend modes to see how different I can make this. There's darken mode and multiply, and the last option would be taking that color fill layer, dragging it above the pattern fill layer here in the layers palette and applying a different blend mode to it. So now it is casting its color upon the pattern layer. So each of these has a completely different effect. Each blend mode, you can just go down the line one at a time to see what looks good, what you really like, and how you can alter it further if you really wanted to. It can make a design you made look completely different. For instance, this overlay blend is quite interesting. I can also reduce the fill amount, which really changes how much of this blend mode gets applied to the layer below it. I could push it back up to 100 so you could see the difference when I do change that. And let's just say I like this now. I'm happy with this, so I'm just going to do Save As. This will be my Bonbon Large Filled, and I will save that to the desktop. Click OK. Now I can print that to some sturdy stock that will allow me to cut and fold it along those dashed lines and form it into a small bonbon box. Remember to save your file and have fun.